A sequence of fragmented news reports details the aftermath of an asteroid crash in Europe, which brought with it an extraterrestrial species known as the Mimics. Their invasion resulted in a deadly war that lasted for 5 years, during which the NATO-led United Defense Forces suffered continuous defeats. Finally, the United Defense Forces achieved a victory at Verdun, France, using advanced mechanized combat suits called jackets. A UK Special Forces soldier named Sergeant Rita Vertowski gained fame as the Angel of Verdun after single-handedly killing numerous Mimics. She becomes a symbol of hope and a recruitment asset for the human military as they plan a final multi-pronged assault on Europe. One of the news presenters highlighting Vertowski's accomplishments and promoting the war effort is Major William Cage of the U.S. Army, who is also featured in the news reports. Cage wakes up from a nap during a helicopter trip to London, the day before the planned invasion of France. He meets with General Brigham, the commander of the Western Allies, thinking that Brigham wants him to assist in boosting his public image or prepare for a future political career. However, the general gives Cage a different assignment: to accompany the first wave of Allied troops landing in France and provide media coverage from the ground. Despite having no combat experience, Cage tries every trick he can think of to avoid being embedded with combat units and avoid deployment. His last resort is to blackmail the general using his media skills, but the general sees through Cage's plan and orders his arrest. Cage tries to escape but is subdued by guards using a taser, causing him to lose consciousness. After being rendered unconscious by the guards, Cage wakes up on a heap of duffel bags at Heathrow Airport in the afternoon. The airport has been transformed into a military base and the departure point for the invasion of the continent. A sergeant insults him by calling him a maggot before Sergeant Farrell takes over. Farrell has received orders from General Brigham that accuse Cage of desertion and impersonating a major. As a consequence, Cage is assigned to a peculiar group of soldiers, J Squad, who are caught gambling while playing poker by Farrell when Cage is introduced to them. Farrell makes J Squad consume the cards they are gambling with and then orders them to prepare Cage for deployment with them the following day. The squad begins Cage's physical training right away. The following day, Cage is extremely anxious. He is given a combat suit, but the soldiers in J Squad refuse to teach him how to use it, including how to disable the safety mechanism on his weapon because they believe he will not last long in combat. As they are preparing to parachute onto the French coast, the enemy hits the back of their aircraft with a weapon, causing the squad to drop early. Despite the fact that the operation to retake Europe was meant to be a surprise attack, the Mimics are fully prepared and easily defeat the human forces. Sergeant Vertowski also lands on the beach but is killed shortly after. The rest of J Squad is also quickly killed. Dazed and on the brink of death, Cage grabs a claymore mine and is attacked by a giant blue mimic, an alpha. The ensuing explosion kills the alpha, and just before Cage dies, the alpha's blue blood covers Cage's injuries. Cage wakes up in a state of panic on the same pile of duffel bags he was on the day before. The same sergeant insults him again, and Farrell takes him back to J Squad. Despite Cage's frantic attempts to warn them about an impending ambush by the Mimics, no one believes him. Trapped in a time loop, he is sent to battle and killed in various ways, only to wake up again and again on the duffel bags. With each repetition, he becomes better at fighting and saving his comrades, including Vertowski, but the Mimics are too many and eventually kill everyone. In one of the loops, he manages to survive long enough to tell Vertowski about the time loop. After realizing the situation, Vertowski instructs Cage to find me when you wake up before they both perish again. Cage wakes up on the duffel bags once again, and this time he decides to work with Sergeant Farrell and J Squad to buy themselves some time to find Vertowski. He makes multiple attempts to escape, but they all end up being fatal. However, during physical training, he finally manages to slip away and locate Vertowski in a training bay where she is surrounded by drones. Initially, Vertowski and her Special Forces soldiers are hostile towards Cage, but when he tells her that she had asked for him, she takes him to a weapons building bay where she introduces him to Dr. Carter. Carter had formerly worked in General Brigham's HQ as a researcher and had developed a theory that all Mimics are merely neural projections of an alien creature known as Omega, which controls them all. Carter reveals to Cage that the aliens possess the ability to manipulate time, and every time an alpha Mimic is killed, they use this power to rewind time and anticipate the humans' next moves. Vertowski tells Cage that she got trapped in the time loop after being drenched in the blood of an alpha Mimic, just like him. She remained stuck in the loop until she killed hundreds of Mimics in one loop, which became her final loop. However, she broke the loop after receiving a human blood transfusion, which made the alien blood ineffective. Vertowski instructs Cage to repeat the loop until he finds a clue that will help them win the battle. She also warns him to ensure that he dies on the battlefield or in training, or she will have to kill him to start the loop again. Carter had developed a device that could locate the Omega by stabbing an alpha mimic, but his theory was not believed, and he was demoted to a mechanical repair unit. Despite Cage's attempts to understand, Vertovsky insists that their priority is to survive the upcoming invasion before finding the Omega. Through numerous loops, Vertovsky trains Cage, even killing him at times to make him restart the loop and improve their combat skills. Despite their efforts, they continue to die and Cage remains stuck in the time loop. Cage develops feelings for Vertovsky, and watching her die repeatedly takes a toll on him. Eventually, Cage has a vision showing the Omega's location in a dam in Germany. Vertovsky and Carter believe the vision is a result of Cage's exposure to alpha mimic blood and that the Omega can manipulate time and perception. Cage and Vertovsky focus on surviving the invasion and reaching Germany to find the Omega. Cage and Vertovsky eventually succeed in getting inland after many failed attempts and deaths. Along the way, Cage starts to develop feelings for Vertovsky and learns more about her, including the fact that she had a boyfriend who died during the battle at Verdun. They find a helicopter at a farmhouse and Cage tries to convince Vertovsky to stay there while he goes alone to confront the Omega. She rushed to fly the helicopter, but the moment she started the engine, the aliens started to attack them. Cage tried to save them but it was late and they got killed. In another loop, Cage decides to skip meeting Vertovsky and Cage eventually manages to reach the German dam alone, but he doesn't find anything useful and is almost captured by the mimics. In the next loop, Cage, Vertovsky, and Carter finally understand the meaning of Cage's visions. The Omega had tricked the humans into invading Europe by letting them win the Battle of Verdun, which led to the annihilation of all human armies. The device created by Carter is their last hope, so Cage and Vertovsky focus on obtaining it. They break into the Ministry of Defense and after several attempts, convince Brigham to give them the transponder. While escaping, Vertovsky inserts the transponder into Cage's leg, which reveals the location of the Omega under the Louvre Museum in Paris. However, they are stopped by a soldier in a mechanical jacket, and Vertovsky is knocked unconscious by the airbag before she can harm Cage. Cage wakes up on a hospital bed, tied up and being given a blood transfusion. He comes to the realization that he can no longer reset time. Vertovsky comes to his rescue and helps him escape. With limited time before the invasion, Cage decides to enlist the help of J's squad to get to Paris. He convinces the squad to join him with the help of his knowledge about them and Vertovsky's credibility. They steal an aircraft and fly toward Paris. As they approach the Louvre, the mimics launch an attack on their aircraft. To avoid the resetting time, they must not kill the alpha mimic guarding the Omega, so the team members are instructed to sacrifice themselves if necessary and not attempt to engage any alpha mimics. The fight results in the death of half of the J squad. With only 3 remaining members and little engine power left, they use the aircraft to slide into the Louvre. Their plan is to use grenades to destroy the Omega, which is located deep under the museum. The other J squad members sacrifice themselves in the slide, and Cage and Vertovsky manage to enter the museum. Vertovsky decides to distract the alpha mimic while Cage attempts to drop grenades onto the Omega. She knows they won't survive, so she kisses him and expresses regret for not having had more time to get to know him better. Vertovsky goes to distract the alpha mimic while Cage dives into the water to locate the Omega. The alpha soon catches and kills Vertovsky, while the Omega senses Cage and sends the alpha after him. The alpha stabs Cage, but he manages to drop a belt of grenades into the Omega before dying. The explosion of the Omega leads to the death of all the mimics. Following Cage's death, the blood of the Omega washes over him, much like the alpha's blood did on the first day of the loop, and he comes back to life with his eyes open. Cage wakes up abruptly, disoriented, and realizes he is on a helicopter heading to London on the day of the invasion and is meeting with General Brigham. Upon landing, he hears the joyous ringing of bells and witnesses a press conference where the general reveals that a massive unexplained energy surge occurred in Paris, resulting in the demise of the mimics. The general announces that the human military will embark on a large-scale operation throughout Europe the following day. Cage observes J's squad participating in physical training at the base, and he searches for Vertovsky. He is now treated with respect by everyone as a high-ranking officer. He eventually finds Vertovsky, who greets him in the same abrupt manner she always has in previous loops. Cage grins broadly. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe and leave a comment and let us know which film you want us to explore next. Take care.